Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my candy. Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my candy.
Howdy, welcome to another episode of Yakapedia. I'm Pete Taylor, indie cartoonist and creator of Silverbeard. Mike went into the Yakapedia stacks some weeks ago looking for an obscure zombie-themed issue of Jimmy Olson. This has happened before, and sometimes he can be gone for months, but it usually leads to him discovering a rich seam of comic treasure that we can yak about soon. In the meantime, I'm starting a new segment called Panel Beaters, where I'll be chatting to comics creators and discussing their processes and the favoured ways they produce their comic pages. Today it's the king of Peruvian cyberpunk, Gustavo Vargas. Just before that though, I need to plug the latest project that Gustavo and I have been involved in. The comics magazine SKRAWL returns with issue 2. 80 oversized pages featuring comics by SKRAWLLORDZ Martin Simpson, Russell Mark Olson, Mark Hughes, Nick Prolix, Gustavo and myself, plus guests David Rubín, Norm Konyu, Anna Readman, Jordan Thomas, a text story by Leah Moore illustrated by Owen Sherwood, and an interview with editorial comics legend Shelly Bond. It's got the Project We Love badge, so searching SKRAWL 2 on kickstarter.com should take you right to it. Otherwise, search hashtag SKRAWL 2 on Twitter or Instagram, or there'll be a link in the info of this podcast. Okay, now let's jump into the chat with the maestro, Gustavo Vargas.
We were talking about different creators that are coming over to England for the upcoming festival season. We were talking about Jaime Hernandez.
Yes.
We were talking about Jaime is coming to the Lakes Festival. That sort of led us to talk about general process, wasn't it? Because we started talking about the cinematic influence on comics.
Yeah, you were talking about you went to a panel or to a chat.
Yes, online workshop sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes. And then we were talking about Darwin Cook and how he is he has a very cinematic approach, and we both agree on that. But my take was a bit like I love Darwin Cook's work, but my take was a bit more. It works great on his work, but people many times mention that it's very cinematic. But the word cinematic has become, and we were talking a bit about that. Comics is not cinema on paper. That was the main thing that sometimes people confuse that, and that people talk about Darwin Cook's or other artists making amazing work that looks a bit cinematic as a very like the direction you should go. I think the direction Darwin Cook is amazing, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for other artists. And there's a richness in the graphic style that you're going to decide that it's going to inform that cinematic, that is going to work differently for sure. So cinematic is just a description of something. It's not like the goal of you finally achieve cinematic status. Now you're a proper artist. That kind of thing, because many times the more that also relates a bit to me, the more realistic in a way, even though it's very cartoony, but the more realistic like an artist makes their comics next to the more cartoony some people tend to say, yeah, that's the thing because it looks almost like the cinema, and it's like, no, it's just two different languages. And it's for me, it's the same reason that mainly I don't get very, very excited about most comics that get into films or TV shows, because for me, that's the final form. The other is just another version, like some other artists could take that. So for me, like finally I can see them moving. No, they were already moving for me. That's the final version. Or when a 2D cartoon animation that is gets done in, for example, Cowboy Bebop gets done in live. It's interesting, but it really doesn't excite me because each medium, I see it by itself as a full, complete medium. It's rich. There's films I love, there's comics I love, and it doesn't mean that the final form of you feel like the final form of a book might be a comic book, and the final form of a comic book might be a film or something with live action and a lot of 3D. And I think that's you're losing a lot of all the language of the actual medium you have with comics. I remember I had I don't know if you know Sarah Harris.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember she posted maybe a year and a half. I never thought that much about it. And she was saying that, I don't remember what's the name of this, but she can remember imagery that much. She cannot retain. So in order to make art, she has to see. She can remember a bit, but she doesn't, her brain doesn't see it. So for example, if you want to draw Spider-Man, even though you don't know all the details, unless you're a really big fan, you know it by heart, and you know there's the red, there's the blue, there's the lines and all that stuff. She knows, she loves it, and maybe she knows it's red and blue, but it gets very fuzzy. So she needs to see an image, and then she translates. She's a lot better in copying stuff. And I think she even put a link to a video explaining how this works, and different people have different ways of retaining information, graphic information about many things, faces and stuff. And that made me think, wait, because I've heard more than once artists or people talking about, yeah, that's how I imagined it, but it never really came out as I was picturing it. And I was like, I've never had that. And I even had a chat. I was chatting with Russell Mark Olson, and he told me, yeah, I see some stuff, but I really don't see it that clear. And for me, that's the same. I have an idea or a feeling, but I really don't see my things. And I was having a chat later about the same thing with my wife, and she told me that's my problems with when they make movie adaptations, TV show adaptations. When I read, for example, just a written book, I can see if the character is well described. For me, it's as clear as seeing you. And all of a sudden comes the movie, and it's like, why that actor doesn't look anything like the real character or the real thing? And it's a very disappointing game for her. It's very hard for her to engage, for example, in things that she enjoys, especially books that become TV shows, series, or mostly it's live things, because how she sees visually is very different from other people. And I've been asking people a bit about that, and everybody has different levels. I don't know what's your level of how far you see what you want to.
Mine is vague. I don't see it absolutely crystal clear, which is why I think sometimes some of my favorite pieces that I've done myself are the ones that don't look like have been done by me. I can look back at some of them and go, it's like, God, I can't believe I drew that. I really like that. And then there are other bits. The bits that seem more like you are the ones where you nearly got there, or it wasn't quite what you wanted, or you can see the fault in it. I've heard that same story as well as the comedian Richard Herring. He talks about how he doesn't see visuals at all and sees words. If someone says apple, then I can see an apple. He only sees the word.
Yeah, there's a name for that.
Yeah, it's strange. And there was a Pixar artist who, again, you kind of expect there to be some sort of visual imagery working within a creator, but they said they didn't have any at all. But they described it that their journey to where they're going is perhaps a bit freer for not having that preconception.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And once I was thinking about that, I was thinking, okay, so still hugely successful at what they do. There doesn't have to be this form of visual connective tissue from the desire to the output. But the idea that you don't necessarily, that some people out there have that lack of visualization, I found astounding.
Yeah, it's very, and the other way around too. I suppose I don't know, because you need some kind of anchor. I remember also once seeing a video, and they were talking about I don't know how you say, Kim Jung-ji, I suppose, this Korean artist that draws.
Oh, right. Yeah.
How do you say
I know
it?
the guy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. But this amazing artist that is very well known. He travels the world and he draws perspective like he draws like he was tracing, and his art is amazing and very loose. It's not tight. It's very loose, and he just plays with lines, and he just starts drawing, and he just spreads like staying. It's not like he needs to sketch a bit and calculate. No, he just keeps on playing. I actually saw it on the first time I went to Thought Bubble. It was like, wow, it was crazy drawing live. And they were talking about him, and even though he's amazingly trained and he's an actual teacher and trainer for people to illustrate, and that he gives lectures about that, his capacity, not only the skill his brain had, but also the amount of information he puts in his brain in order to do something, right? Because it's okay, now I know how to make a car, this certain car. Now I can make a tiger. Now I can make a donkey. Now I can make a horse. And little by little, you kind of, a bit like Neo. I know Kung Fu now. It's a bit like that. You upgrade, and I have this upgrade now. I can draw this horse. Now I can draw this type of car. Now I can draw these baggy jeans. And little by little, you put all these tools on your I don't know, on your toolbox, and you can do that. But the amount of information that he has, because also you need this information, and however then you process it when you put it on paper. But it's also I don't know what's his balance. For example, that would be very interesting because it's I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned playing around and upgrade. Is funny because that made me think about how when we work on the SKRAWL magazine stories and when we meet up, there's always talk of trying to do something different with your stories.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a drive amongst the other SKRAWLLORDZ. SKRAWL is a good place to do something different and to play around and expand your toolbox somewhat.
Yes. You're right.
And I've been slowly working on my script, and it's turned into, for me, a sort of experiment in inking, because I'm doing it digitally. But the thing about digital is you've got a disconnect between the physical paper, that you know exactly the scale, you know the distance you are from it, you know the size that you draw, and you know you're drawing it half up and it's going to be reduced down. Strange thing about digital is that's gone. You can zoom in at any point. You can make your page as big or as small as you like. And I'm still wrestling with it. It's still something that I kind of have to work on it, but print it out and have a look at it as it's going to be. I find that the disconnect between that line that you do physically and the line that you do digitally. And I read a book called The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and it's by Dave Sim, the creator of Cerebus. It originally came out as a comic called Glamourpuss in the sort of early mid 2000s, I think, possibly. Glamourpuss was a strange, very strange comic, but he's managed to consolidate the interesting study of certain realistic artists into a more comprehensive book with this one. He does this incredible forensic study of the inking methods of Alex Raymond, principally, but he also talks of Milt Kniff and the other one. It's the guy who did Buck Rogers, Hal Foster. He analyzes the inking of Alex Raymond to the extent he recreates panel after panel after panel. And you know, Dave Sim was somebody who inked with a pen and cross-hatched, and you know, had incredibly detailed. You know, he's an amazing cartoonist. But you could see through each discussion what he was learning by taking up the brush and sticking with it. He learned how the artist was loading the brush. He learned how they were keeping the tip as sharp as they were, which enabled them to work longer and therefore quicker. And that just made me then think about how I was working. But it somehow helped me to make that connection with my digital brush in a kind of more concrete than previously. I used to change my brush size a lot. I would zoom in to do details and zoom out, and then I suddenly thought, no, I'm gonna treat my screen as a piece of paper, and I'm gonna treat my digital brush as a brush, and I'm gonna see what happens. That
is interesting because it's not digital, but at the same time it's telling you to analyze what you're doing and how to make the more fit way of doing it, in a way the most comfortable you can feel, so you can, as far as possible, it can go out as if you were drawing on paper. That's actually maybe the first reason why, one of the main reasons why I went back to paper, because I was drawing digitally through Hughes. Is done all in, I mean, the sketches were done in paper, and all the finished pages is all digital. My colors usually are digital, but even in the beginning, I remember once I had a conversation with my brother. He's also he's more like a copywriter, but he also deals with imagery, and he was telling me the thing is there's a disconnection with the plastic tablet. It's like something's in between. You're filtering the information. It's not direct. I don't know if that happens could happen to me with a Cintiq that has the screen, but still, even the scratchy feeling that you have with pencil on paper is something that you need to feel it more comfortable. So my thumbnails and everything went on paper, and whenever I need to really fix an idea quickly, I do it on paper. I just scribble. That's very, very important. And another thing I also learned was my pencils are tight enough, but I don't use when I ink those pages, I don't trace completely. Let's say I remember even Jason Latour, I saw him on a video not so long ago, and he was talking about like he uses them as a very good guide, but this is not like the finish, and it has to go exactly on top. Unless something really needs to be exactly on top, you still can vary things, can change stuff. So and that way I managed to have a steady structure, but at the same time it can get a bit more loose. So, and if a line goes a bit too much to the left, to the right, that's fine, and you just keep on going. Yeah. And that's also one thing I didn't enjoy a lot with digital. Yeah, the zooming in, it's a bit tricky, but also the undo and do the line again. I really don't like that, and I really enjoy that on paper, because now if I mess it up, I know I can fix it, I know I can change it. The worst case scenario, I do it in another paper, but it's not the end of the world. That's fine. That's paper. Just make your mess. That I feel very comfortable about it, and I feel like you're treating the page like it was basically one size. I think that's very clever, because you end up doing crowds of hundreds of faces that will
never be seen.
Nobody will ever see it. Yeah.
It's funny that when you say acceptance, as well, I think, I heard Bill Sienkiewicz talking about how it sounded like a battle the way he described it. He said he makes a mistake and then fixes it. And then he makes another mistake and then he fixes it.
And I feel it's also very freeing in a way, because it's like, oh, I mess it up. Don't worry, you'll fix it. Okay, I fix it. Oh, I mess it again. Okay, don't worry. It's instead of, because I remember the first time I went back to paper, I was a bit nervous, because I was working on a comic that was going to get printed. But it was every time I could mess, it was oh no. How do I do this? it was like I don't know. You destroy the house, and now it's like oh yeah, let's see how I fix this. Let's see. But it's very much like yeah. Don't worry. Keep going. It's one panel. It's one thing. It's just one line. It's a part of a full drawing. It's going to be fine. So it's more like you don't see a problem. You just become more like a solution solver. You just find solutions all the time. So all the time you're finding solutions, and in that way you feel a bit more like it's going to be fine, instead of being too nervous, because that mindset sometimes can make a difference of your drawing being comfortable and finding the right rhythm for you, and you fighting with yourself and getting a bit stuck because you're too nervous for the next line and the next line.
There was a phrase in getting stuck by your intention. You know that there's sometimes if you do have too clear a view of what you want and it's not marrying up to that, then like you say, it becomes a constant hurdle. You know, becomes a kind of stutter to your work. You're constantly that paralysis through analysis.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Was the much spiffier way of saying it. Yeah, if you're constantly looking or matching it against that degree of visualization or expectation that you've built for yourself, then that in itself is a process that you've got to go through each. And digitally, it can be each line. You know, there's nothing better than to see sometimes that, especially in some of these artisan books where you're looking at the actual physical artwork. I love to see when the artist has literally cut out the panel.
Yes.
And cut another panel in. It's kind of like, you know, there's still always that.
You see a lot of patches and things and watch over and paper and scratches. I don't know. I really enjoy seeing looks like you're watching a battlefield.
Yeah.
In a way. And I love seeing that because it's one, you want to achieve something, and that's fine. I will try to find it somehow, and you just put things, and in the end, okay, let's move on to the next stage. I love it. I'm not completely sure. I remember once I was talking to Lawrence Campbell, I think, and he had one patch on a panel on a beautiful page, and I told him, oh, that's so cool, and he told me, yeah, no, I enjoy. I really wanted to change that bit. For me, that was important, but I don't know. I'm not sure if people that are interested in my pages appreciate that much. I think some people kind of criticize them, and I was like, but that's you just trying to make a better work. Yeah, it's funny, but
when I was looking through some James Harren pages on Felix Comic Art, you know, I'd love a page of his, partly because sometimes, you know, the process is right there, and you can. There was one I saw, and he put the panel on, but he just stuck it on with 2 bits of like electrical tape on the side, just literally just kind of 2 big bits of tape, and it's like, oh, wouldn't you want to peek under there?
Yeah,
see what it was.
Yeah, like I was saying, I think it's very freeing, and to find your own way. For example, the more sketchier and loosier, I was sketching a lot some years ago, more than now, and my hand got used to it, and in some moment I couldn't draw cleaner in a way, or with a clean line, more cartoony line, because I was trying to do that for a little bit, and I realized that looks beautiful on people that enjoy doing that, but that's not me. So let's do something different, and that way I got a bit more sketchy but comfortable, and still looks consistent enough that it looks okay. I remember Nick Prolix one mentioning that he heard Seth. I think he's a Canadian cartoonist, author, and he was saying that, and you see his comics they're clean lines, very cartoony, perfect. They look almost like vector lines, and he was saying, no, it really doesn't take me that much to ink a page with ink. what really takes me more time is to clean everything and make everything perfect with watch or postcard pens with white out. That way it looks exactly how it's going to be finished. So he does everything nice and then he fixes. So I don't know, the time of fixing in this way the page to make it look like that takes more time than the actual inking. But that's his way, and that's a way of saying, yeah, if you want to do a cartoony line and you, I don't know, you don't worry that much because you can always fix it. It's that's exactly what he does. It's freeing. It's very clean. It's very nice and looks like exactly it's perfect for the stories he wants to tell. But it's amazing. It's this white out. It's also very using white out. It's very freeing.
One thing I've been playing around with as well, actually, that I've been again fits with what we're saying is, and when I lightbox, I used to pencil and then ink, and now I'll just put the rough underneath the Bristol and then ink straight on the Bristol rather than lightboxing the pencil.
Okay. Lightbox doesn't work for me in that way. I use it a lot, but just to give some structure, and then I need to. It gets too tight for me. I tend to trace too much. But what I do is my pencils. First, my thumbnails, I do it on a small piece of paper. Then I blow it up, print it on very light blue lines on a piece of normal paper, and I put the panels, and I do the pencils on top of that sheet. But it's a normal, I don't know, copy paper sheet, A3, A4, and then I scan that again and print it on the Bristol. Again, light blue, so I can take it out in Photoshop, but that way also frees me a bit. I know the original. If I really mess it up, I can reprint that again, or I can reprint one panel and just fix that. For me, that's the most comfortable way right now because I have a printer at home. So that's I don't know. It's very comfortable. I saw Mark Olson doing that a lot, and I said, okay, let's try that. I tried that before, but it didn't work out for me. But now it's my most favorite way to work out.
Yeah, I do that for when I'm physically doing my pages, which isn't very often. I do it with the blue line. The last lot but with the sketches or commissions, sometimes I'll just ink straight onto the Bristol with it on a lightbox, just to get a bit freer. So I'm basically doing my pencils that's very rough, because also I can't always, sometimes I've overdone my pencils, and if I was inking over the top, they'd show through too much. So I kind of for the sketches and commissions, I'll do the pencils and then on a shitty bit of paper, and then ink straight over the top on the Bristol with.
That's the thing I do with usually when I do commissions, I work directly, but sometimes I make a sketch to the size and I just lightbox it, but just to have the basic structure. But the battle maybe has happened on that sheet of paper. So when I put it I just trace the basic structure. It's very loose, and sometimes I'm a bit amazed of how little detail I can put and feel that I can get away with murder. And in the end, usually, again, I play a bit more, depending. Sometimes, I need to do some fine detailing on some face, but I know that some blocky part of cables is going to happen. It doesn't really matter if it's going to a bit to the left or a bit to the right. And I just play along with that, and it comes very, I don't know, flows really, really well, but depends. You have some bits that are very detailed and some bits that are very, very loose and looks like just like 7 lines there, and then a drawing comes there.
But that's funny, isn't it? Because that almost then becomes the closest that it actually looks in my mind's eye is this half murky detail. Because like you say, the most important part a lot of the time is the structure for me. I want to know where everything is, Yes. I want to know the positioning. I want to know the light source. I want to know the general placement, the rough that I did. There are elements of that I like, and some of those I want to translate quite accurately. but then there's plenty on that sketch that hasn't properly been worked out yet either, and you're gonna
you will figure it out.
You're gonna ride that one out later on. Yeah.
So sometimes when I've seen my sometimes I've made videos of my hand doing or some other artists, and you see like they're putting coordinate points. Once you have that, and the drawing doesn't need to be actually there, but you know where the eyes are going to be, then you can make it whatever style you want it to be, but you need them to be on certain point that makes sense with the head and stuff like that. And it's just setting these coordinate points, and then you just start scribbling basically.
It's funny. We started off with the talk of the visualization, and then it seems to me that's that sweet spot, I suppose.
It's something like a halfway. I mean, you kind of see some bits, you kind of wait, hope it's going to make sense once you do it, but you really cannot see it. It's like this. I don't know. It's like going for a walk, and you know where you're walking, but you're hoping to discover a nice path. If you turn left, and I guess it's going to be nice that in that area. It's a bit like that. And all of a sudden you get, I don't know.
A slight tipping point. You want to know where you are. You want to know where you're heading. But you want a bit of excitement along the way as well. You want to surprise
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to arrive in one piece.
Exactly. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I want to go back
you don't mind if your wallet's been stolen as long as you had a good time.
Sometimes. Yeah. I hope
right,
so.
Well, listen, mate, it's been awesome catching up.
It's always a lot of fun chatting with you, processing all this comic stuff. So, happy to. Hopefully see you in one of the festivals coming.
You're going to be at the Lake and Thought Bubble, yeah?
Yes, I'm going.
Thanks, mate. We'll speak soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.